We are heading into the holidays, and I wanted to have you guys prepared so that you can enjoy the holidays, have a lot of good food around you, and not sacrifice your health, because you don't want to start the new year with a lot more symptoms than you're dealing with right now. You want to start the new year where you actually are feeling well and actually maybe even better than you are right now. So what I'm going to share in this video is as I'm going through the different holiday meal ideas, I'm going to share with you some guidelines that are really important. So this video is really for people that maybe you have some types of symptoms, disease symptoms, maybe you haven't been diagnosed, or maybe you're dealing with chronic disease like MS, ALS, PLS, Parkinson's, or some other cancer, etc. We know, if you follow my work, you know that all chronic disease, the biggest cause of all chronic disease would be parasites in the body. And parasites do eat a lot of different foods, but their favorite food would be processed carbohydrates. And so when we make sure that we're not overloading ourselves with processed carbohydrates, that's when we notice that we actually decreasing the carbs. That's the big thing, is decreasing the carbs and still eating really good food and enjoying the holidays. You'll notice that you actually feel better while you're going through the holidays. You can enjoy your family. You'll have more energy. You'll have more strength. You'll have better mental clarity. You'll have a better mood. All of it, sleep better, etc. So the guidelines that we're sharing, if you don't know about the Live Disease-Free plan and the Live Disease-Free diet, just want to make sure that, make sure to comment if you are joining me. I just want to make sure that send your questions in. If you are a veteran and you are following the Live Disease-Free plan, then make sure to share maybe some of your favorite holiday ideas. So the Live Disease-Free diet, it's not paleo. It is a little bit lower carb than paleo, and it's a little higher carb than keto. And the big thing with keto is that keto, you can have dairy, and we don't do dairy when we have chronic disease because it just doesn't work with these parasites. Butter is fine. Ghee is even better. But the key is that we really have to make sure that we're getting the carbs down. So I just want to make sure that I am broadcasting, because I normally see comments. Yes, it's working. Perfect. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to carry on. So if you guys have any questions about what we're talking about or the diet, etc., just share away. So what we're doing is the general guidelines for the Live Disease-Free diet. There we go. I know there's a bit of a lag. The general guidelines for the Live Disease-Free diet is to get the total grams of carbs down to below 50 total grams of carbs per day, but the sweet spot seems to be between 35 and 40 total grams of carbs. And when you get the carbs low enough, it could even be 30 grams of carbs for some people, but this is something you can test yourself and you can see where you feel the best. But when you get your carbs low enough, the total grams of carbs, that is fiber, sugar, and carbohydrate, you start to feel so much better. The parasites are still there, but they're not as active. And if they're not as active, they're not producing as many poisons. And we notice that our immune system doesn't have to work as hard. So we see that the inflammation starts to go down. And inflammation, think of inflammation is war, right? It's a war between our immune system fighting the parasites. So when the carbs are low enough, and the parasites generally don't like fat as much, and we'll talk about protein also, but this is really, really important because it gives us a lot of symptom improvements, and we can get through the holidays because the holidays are busy. And that's why I'm talking to you about the holiday meal ideas earlier. I know that for our American wellness champions, I know that you're having your Thanksgiving tomorrow and maybe you've got all your food in place, but we're going to be doing lots of visiting and spending time with family. And I'll give you some different ideas. Like sometimes what I would do is I would eat before I go to a bigger group gathering, just in case they don't have enough food that I would eat. I will bring food along that I'll give you lots of different ideas for appies, etc. So I'll bring an appy or a snack along that I can eat, and everyone else loves them too. But I just make sure that I eat before because I don't want to lose weight and I don't want to be starving and I don't want to eat a lot of that food I don't even want. And so being a little bit prepared can make things a lot easier for you and can make things more enjoyable, where you're not starving or you're just grabbing things you know you shouldn't eat. You know you're going to pay for it later and it's just not worth it. So I'm going to start first of all with the meal. No, actually, let's start with the beverages, because when you're out visiting with family or friends over the holiday, or maybe you're at home and you've invited people over, what can we drink? So some of the favorites that I have for a beverage, for example, would be, if I want something cold, it would be sparkling water. So back in the day, a few years ago, it was more like Perrier and San Pellegrino. I like the unflavored waters, and I like to put fresh lemon and fresh lime. You can even add in fresh mint, for example. That would taste really good too. You could also, I'm going to talk about the teas. You could also make some tea and make it cold. For example, the passion flower tea, that's a really nice one. I think I have it here. I brought a bunch of different things here. No, I don't see it. Yes, I do. Here it is. So the Tazo passion flower tea, that one is really nice. So you could make it cold and then you could add some sparkling water to it. Like for my grandkids, we would add a little bit of juice, for example, but we don't want to have the sugar from juice. So if you make a really nice tea, you can make it bubbly, or just, I personally love fresh lemon, fresh lime, or mint leaves, etc., in the sparkling water. Now we have all kinds of flavored water. So you can even find in your local grocery store, sometimes they have generic sparkling waters, but Bubbly is one example, or LaCroix is another one, where there will be, it's literally like an essence of a flavor. There's no sugar. It'll be sparkling water flavored. So it'll be like, it could be strawberry, could be apple, it could be blackberry. There's so much cherry, lemon, lime, watermelon, pineapple. There's so many different. And I personally wouldn't drink a lot of those. They say that they have natural flavors, but it's not necessarily true that the natural flavor that they put in that kind of tastes like pineapple actually came from a pineapple. We find that a lot of the natural flavors are actually, like when I was back in university and we were doing chemistry labs, you can mix different chemicals together and you can get banana flavor, pineapple flavor, etc. And maybe it has carbon in it, and that's, a natural element, but that doesn't mean it came from the actual fruit. So if you have a Perrier, that's great. If you have a San Pellegrino, that's great. If you have the odd Bubbly or LaCroix or other, they're fine, dude. I just wouldn't drink them every day because they're quite acidic and hard on your enamel if you're drinking them a lot. But all of those do not contain sugar. It should say 0 sugar. Make sure to always read the back of the label. I know in supplements it's called supplemental facts, but just the back of the label, it'll tell you how much sugar and carbohydrates, etc. And for those drinks, you want 0. There will be a little bit of sugar in your lemon or lime, the fresh lemon or lime, but if you're just putting a squirt in there, it's not going to be a problem. So that's what I like to drink. It's really refreshing. It doesn't leave you feeling awful the next day. Definitely we would avoid all alcohol if we have parasites, because a lot of these parasites, and a parasite is not just a worm, it's any microbe that lives in us and causes us harm. We know that a lot of these parasites will produce alcohols, organic acids, and different types of, like yeast, for example, is a massive producer of ethanol. So when we have these parasites, our liver is trying to detoxify alcohol from these parasites. We don't need to be adding any more. Alcohol is a mycotoxin. So if you have parasites, if you have any kind of symptoms, just avoid it. It'll make you feel like the next day like you were hit by a truck, and that is the acetaldehyde that your body will be dealing with. So instead, the cold drinks, I would have more of the sparkling water, and then if I want something warm, so like for example, after a meal, I don't have desserts because I don't eat sugar and I don't Like when you eat this way, you never have indigestion, you never have stomach pain. Like it's just an amazing way to eat. And you can eat a lot of food, but you're not going to feel sick after. An old standby is obviously peppermint tea. That's something that I always love to have around, and I never get sick of it. But over Christmas, we found this one from Celestial Seasoning, and it's called Sugar Plum Spice. And the nice thing about this is that there would be virtually no sugar. Like one way you can tell is, for me especially, because I never have sugar, like if it tastes sweet. So avoid any teas that taste sweet to your tongue. And if you've been having a lot of sugar, you might not be able to tell. So this tea has things like hibiscus and roasted chicory, chamomile, rose hips, roasted carob, and natural flavors, ginger and cardamom. So it just has a nice Christmassy taste, but it doesn't have sugar in it. And of course, this is another, I like just their plain Sleepy Time, but this is a really nice tea, and it's just, move my hand. So it's called Sleepy Time. It's again Celestial Seed. You'll find different companies in your grocery stores or in your health food stores. So this is a Sleepy Time vanilla. I like just the Sleepy Time. It has a little bit of mint and chamomile. So that's a nice little cup of tea before bed. This one has a little bit of vanilla in it also. And then if you really love Earl Grey, and this is another great tea, and it's called Tega, and it actually tastes like Earl Grey. And we find it in our, so all these teas, to be clear, these teas are called caffeine free. They're not decaffeinated. Decaffeinated means there can still be some caffeine. And when you have parasites, even decaffeinated, the small amount of caffeine that's present can actually aggravate or activate the parasites more, and we don't want to make them more activated. There's also different rooibos teas that are great. There's lemon ginger tea. There are so many teas. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put everything I talk about today on our blog post, and we'll be posting it either tomorrow or Thursday. Tomorrow is Thursday, so Thursday or Friday, and you'll have all of these ideas at your fingertips. So again, the Tega tea is like an Earl Grey. There's peppermint, spearmint, chamomile, lemon ginger, and then the Tazo tea, that passion flower. It's really nice in the summer if you have a jug of it in the fridge, and it's tart. It's not really sweet, but when you stop eating sugar, you won't even enjoy the flavor of sugar anymore, and you'll enjoy these flavors. So there are so many other teas. These are just a few that'll give you some ideas. So that's what I like to do, is if I eat a meal and you're just sipping, you're not drinking gallons of water because that's going to dilute your digestive enzymes. But if you're just sipping on a really nice, flavorful tea, it kind of just tops up the meal. It just makes you feel good. It's nice and warm, etc. So again, avoid caffeine or avoid decaffeinated, and just have caffeine free, like naturally caffeine free. So even if it's green tea, I would definitely avoid decaffeinated green tea if you're dealing with any kind of disease symptoms, for sure. Let's talk about condiments and dips. What's really nice is to make a homemade batch of mayonnaise. Really simple. You can use one of those little hand blenders, and it literally makes it within a minute or two. And usually the mayos will contain egg yolk, for example, and oil. If you like extra virgin olive oil, it's definitely the healthiest. But if it's a little bit too strong in the mayonnaise, then you could use part extra virgin olive oil and part avocado oil. Whenever you're buying oils, make sure they're really good quality oils. Make sure that they are cold pressed. And that means that they're not heated while they're produced. They're organic, right? And when they're cold pressed, that means they're not going to have as many or very little trans fats. When the oils are heated a lot, then you can have trans fats, and they're not good for you. So you want cold pressed, organic, extra virgin olive oil, for example. And so you can find these things like in Costco, like they're readily available everywhere. And the extra virgin olive oil is quite expensive. So what we do is buy a 2-pack. It's almost like we're buying wine, and we go through it pretty fast. So we really do like olive oil. if you're going to make, let's say from your mayonnaise, if you're going to make a creamy Caesar salad dressing, then the olive oil is great. But again, just go with your flavor, what your taste buds like. But in the homemade mayonnaise, it's usually a base of like a couple of egg yolks, and then you're adding in oil until it's thick. You might have to add some lemon juice or some apple cider vinegar. Try not to have any other vinegars. The apple cider vinegar apparently is okay when you're having candida or other types of parasites, worms, etc. But the other vinegars, well, I've just known that for like 30 years that you avoid it. And so when you have this mayonnaise in your fridge, maybe making a bigger batch, you can use it for a variety of things. So you could make, let's say, a dip for your vegetables. So when you're at home, what I like to do is, I haven't bought a lot of recipe books for a long time. I just go online and let's say I want to find a veggie dip. And so I'll look up vegetable dip, and then I'll look at recipes. And when I'm looking for a recipe, I always like to look for recipes that have a lot of 5 out of 5. So they have a lot of reviews. Maybe they have 2, 3, 4, 500 reviews, and a lot of them are, averaging like 5 or really close to 5 out of 5. I'll open up a few of those, and then I'll just jump, like at the top, they'll say jump through the recipe. So you click on that and it takes you right down to the recipe quickly. And then just look at the ingredients. And let's say for a dip for vegetables, maybe it says, sour cream and mayonnaise. I would skip the sour cream and I would just make it out of mayonnaise. And if it says cheese, you're going to just omit the cheese. So there is a Live Disease-Free guidelines, and we'll talk about that in a couple of minutes, but you can find that on our website. If you just type in the search bar in Google Live Disease-Free and diet guidelines, you'll find the blog post that we have. I've got a little video, like a 2 or 3 minute video, and then I also have a cheat sheet that you can copy and put in your kitchen, on your fridge or wherever. So with this mayonnaise, you can make dip, like some people just like plain mayonnaise to dip because it's homemade and it tastes good, to dip their vegetables in. So if you're following the Live Disease-Free diet and you need extra fat to keep your calories up, to keep your weight so you don't lose weight, instead of eating a lot of nuts, which will make you feel awful, it's really helpful just to have this homemade mayonnaise. And so whether you have it plain sometimes, if you're going to have company over, my daughter-in-law shared this with me, but I got this at Costco. Again, I don't know if you can read it, but it just says organic, no salt seasoning, organic, no salt seasoning. And it's crazy because I'll just take mayonnaise, like the homemade mayonnaise, and I'll add I'll just add some of this to it. So I wouldn't eat, if you're really sick, if you have a lot of parasites and you're recovering, you're following the Live Disease-Free plan, I wouldn't put this in my meal all the time. But it's not a lot. It's like for 1/4 teaspoon of the seasoning, it's 1 gram of carbohydrates. So it's not huge, but it tastes amazing and it's organic. And so what I'll do is I'll take mayonnaise and I'll make, because we have quite a big family. So if I have my brothers and sisters and some of their kids and their grandkids over, I'll make like maybe a couple of bowls. So I might have even like 2 cups of mayonnaise. And I don't have a recipe, I just do it to taste. So I'll just throw some mayonnaise in the bowl and I will we like lots of chopped garlic. So you can either use one of these zester graters. My son-in-law put me onto this, and these are amazing. So this zester grater, you can grate your garlic with it, and it makes it really fine so that it's going to disperse in your vegetable dip more evenly, or you can just do finely chopped. And then I will just add this seasoning, and there's no salt in it, so I'll add salt and pepper, garlic, and this. And people rave. They're like, oh my gosh, that dip is so good. So it's really a hit with like people in my family that are not on any diet, and they just absolutely love it. They think that this is just an amazing recipe, and it never is exactly the same because I just literally whip it together really fast. It is nice to chill it a little bit in the fridge, but very often I'm just throwing it together fast and putting it out on the counter. So that vegetable dip is really popular. But if you're recovering from chronic disease, like have this at Christmas time, and have a little bit. But, if you're going to eat like for let's say a cup of mayonnaise, and if you put even a half a teaspoon, that would be like a half a teaspoon of, and I don't know if it's sugar or carbs, it just says carbohydrates, it doesn't say sugar. So, because a lot of it is different types of vegetables and herbs in it. But I mean, you're not going to eat a cup of mayonnaise. That's a lot of mayonnaise, right? So, if you put it out with your different vegetables, you can definitely have some, and it should not bother you at all. Another really nice thing to do if you have that mayonnaise in your fridge is to make a spicy mayo. And I really love that. You can have it with shrimp. Let's say you bake some shrimp in the oven, or maybe you have some kind of meat even. It tastes absolutely delicious. And you can find spicy mayo recipes. So again, you just look online, spicy mayo recipe, look for a lot of good reviews. And sometimes I'll say healthy or sugar-free. And, just you can try different things like that. And the basic premise of I just pulled up a recipe. Again, I'll share all of this with you in the blog post, but it's like a mayonnaise and then some kind of hot sauce. And when you're recovering from chronic disease, we wouldn't do the anything with vinegar in it. So this one is called sambal ulik. Sambal ulik. So SAMBAL. Sambal ulik. Sambal ulik. Yeah. And it's just red chili peppers. And adding that into the mayonnaise, and they usually add in some lime juice. Some people like to add in some toasted sesame oil, some ginger. Ground ginger is fine, but man, if you can add fresh ginger, like you'll notice that when you add like fresh lemon or fresh lime or fresh ginger or fresh garlic, it just kicks up the flavor a lot. So I would definitely use the zester grater again for something like that, because if you're going to do the ginger, you don't want to have chunks of ginger because you're just going to get a mouthful of, it'll be warm, right? So if you use a zester grater, it'll make the ginger more like a paste, and then it'll more evenly disperse through your spicy mayo. So the spicy mayo is absolutely delicious. Even my son-in-law, he's a chef, and he did deep fried Brussels sprouts. And that's not a super healthy thing, like deep frying. We don't do that very often, but it was just like crazy dipping deep fried Brussels sprouts into the spicy mayo was really a hit with everyone. My family, a lot of them are not following any diet, and they absolutely loved it. Another great thing to do, as I mentioned before, was to make Caesar salad dressing. You can make a really nice, creamy Caesar salad dressing with a mayonnaise. You're just literally adding a little bit more like lemon juice or apple cider vinegar. You could add a little bit of water if you need it to be a little runnier, like when you're making the mayo. But the Caesar salad dressing is going to have the garlic, right? A lot of raw garlic. That makes it really good. And salt and pepper and apple cider vinegar and lemon, but anchovy paste. And you can either buy like a little tin of anchovies, and you can chop it up and press it, like kind of make it into a paste, or you can just buy it in a tube. It is in a paste. But just if you're having the Caesar salad, like what I like to do is wash a whole bunch of romaine ahead of time and cut it up, put it in the fridge, and then just skip the croutons and the cheese, and it'll still taste absolutely amazing. You can some people actually like to add a little bit of Dijon mustard into that also. And you can find dry mustard will not have the vinegar. You can find different mustards in the health food store that just have apple cider vinegar instead of the other vinegar. And of course, homemade guacamole is delicious. So lots of garlic in it, salt and pepper. Cumin is really good. I love cumin. So all these different flavors just give you like just a different experience and just make things taste so good. But be careful with guacamole, because although avocados are high in fat, which is good, they also are quite high in carbs. So if you have a small amount, like a tablespoon or two, and you're having all these other foods, it's not going to be a problem. But if you eat like a half a cup, or like, because if you eat, let's say, a half of a larger avocado, that can be 20 grams of carbs per day. And that's half of the carbs that you want to keep it down to. So then for appetizers, instead of crackers, I really like to just from Costco get those big three packs of cucumbers. And if you have a cucumber and you cut it a little bit at an angle, it looks more interesting. So cucumber rounds. I always make a huge veggie platter. I'm called the veggie lady and wherever we go. And one thing that our family really likes, and I don't know if it is traditionally from Holland or the Netherlands, but my dad got us onto this when we were kids. We used to have it on crackers, but now I'll put it on cucumber rounds. But cod liver. So cod liver would be really high in vitamin A, and you can go into like a European deli type store and you can find it. And I absolutely love it. And it's very soft. And so you can it's like a pate. You just mash it onto your cucumber round. Other people might put it on, if you have other family members, you can still have crackers out and they'll put it on that. But some salt and pepper on it, and it's delicious. And it's going to give you lots of vitamin A, which is really good for your health, your vision, etc. Again, the big veggie platter, I really like to include for myself. So if you can't tolerate raw vegetables, then don't eat them, absolutely. The cucumbers might be fine. But for most of us, if we can tolerate the raw vegetables, like I always like to have cauliflower and broccoli and cucumbers, and I will do some cherry tomatoes, but I don't eat a lot of them because I know that usually they're quite high in sugar. But just if I have celery is a really good one, especially if you can get really good celery that is juicy. So you just have to kind of be picky when you buy some. Just make sure it's not really dry or really bitter. But celery is wonderful. That's another really low carb vegetable that is not going to bother you, that you can have with the dip. All right, and so homemade meatballs are great. And again, you could dip them in the spicy mayo, and you can make them out of turkey, out of chicken, out of beef, whatever it is that you like. Just look for a recipe and you can find it. So I found some Swedish meatballs just before we went live, and they just had different herbs in them. Just omit the breadcrumbs. You don't need them. Like I always make meatloafs and hamburgers and everything. I just throw a couple of eggs. If it's 2 pounds of meat, it's usually about an egg per pound of meat. And when you mix all the spices and everything together, it holds together really well. I don't use any breadcrumbs. I don't use any cheese. I use more just herbs and spices and flavors. And then you could dip it in the spicy mayo. You could dip it in your other mayonnaise, whatever you like to do, whatever works for you. We really like smoked salmon. I know that it's probably getting to be really expensive. It kind of concerns me because we're going to have a really large group of family members. We're kind of all going to be in Kelowna together this year in where we live. So it's good. I'm a little concerned about the cost of things. So we'll see with the smoked salmon. But if you're going to buy smoked salmon, make sure to read the back of the label, because very often smoked salmon has sugar in it and you may not realize that. So for example, I think the one at Costco has sugar, but the one at Save On where we live, that would be like Overweighty or Save On, that one did not have sugar. But again, the one at Save On will be a lot more expensive, littler pack. So it'll maybe be a little taste, or it's only if you can afford it, etc. Short ribs are great. So in Costco, they have these big packs of short ribs. They're kind of like in a styrofoam container kind of thing. And they're just quite thin. And so they're really nice if you bake them slowly in the oven for several hours, and then you can put them on the barbecue just to kind of crisp them up a little bit. And then sometimes just doing a little bit of a basting with olive oil and garlic. You can probably find a recipe. Olive oil, garlic, a little bit of lime juice and red pepper flakes and then just baste that a little bit on, and they're so delicious. Chicken wings. So I personally would just do my own chicken wings. I would not, if you're recovering from chronic disease and you can't afford any contamination of things that are not on the label, just buy a big pack of chicken wings, salt and pepper them, and put them in the oven, bake them. But I'm sure you can find recipes for that too. Just look for recipes, salt and pepper chicken wings, and just make sure there's no breadcrumbs. I wouldn't do any nut flours. I wouldn't do any kind of starch on them, because that will feed the infections and that will make you feel worse. Some people like oysters. My husband likes oysters. I don't, but that would be fine too. And then prawns or shrimp are really great, and you can quickly stir or fry them up, or you can actually just bake them in the oven, but just make sure you don't overcook them. And then too, if you want to get really fancy, you can find chicory root. They're like these little, kind of like a bulb green plant-like bulb, and they'll be in the vegetable section. And you can see that you can actually pull the leaves off and you can stuff them with different things, kind of something that would hold whatever you'd like to put in it. And then deviled eggs, right? That's an old standby, but it's delicious. They are really great. All right, so let's go to the meals. So go ahead and type your questions in, and I'll go over that. And remember, I'm going to share all of this. I'll make a blog post. We'll put all of this on, and it'll be like a memory jogger for you. You can kind of go, oh yeah, I haven't had that for a while, or I should try that. So for meals, what we really rely on is like flavor from different types of herbs and spices. And another amazing thing that my son-in-law got me onto with this zester grater is lemon or even orange, the zest of the lemon, the peel, right? And just taking a little bit of the peel off of the lemon or the orange. You can add that to salad dressings. If you're oven roasting vegetables, you can actually sprinkle a little bit on even at the end after they're done being roasted or during. It's just crazy how much flavor a little bit of the zest of the lemon or the orange. We would definitely not have oranges when we're sick because there's a lot of sugar in them. They're healthy, but they're going to feed the parasites and they're going to make us feel worse. So that just thinking about zesting the lemon or lime and putting it in different things, just being creative, it just really kicks up the flavor a lot. Mortar and pestle. So that's something that I never had before. My son-in-law, who's a chef, he bought me this little mortar and pestle. It's kind of heavy. I should have brought it up here, but you literally, if you crush herbs, so instead of just everything being ground, things like fennel or coriander, like if you crush them with the mortar and pestle, and if you roast them a little bit in a pan, it just gives so much, or coriander, it gives so much more flavor. Herbamare is a great seasoning salt, and it's really healthy and safe. So this is something that we really love. We've been using it for years. Everything is backwards. There we go. So herbamare is delicious, and it adds a lot of body to whether you're making soups or if you're making stews or whatever you're making, it adds a lot of flavor. So it has a lot of different herbs that are dried with the salt, and it's very clean and it's very safe. So that's something that we will use very often to just kind of, instead of just plain salt, yes, add salt too, Himalayan or Celtic sea salt, but that herbamare is a really great salt that's safe. And you should be able to find it in grocery stores. There's different types. There's herbamare, and I can't remember what the other, but the company has a few different types of seasoning salts. And when you are looking for like sauces, just make sure that the sauces do not contain like dairy, and they don't contain a lot of carbs like thickeners like flours and cornstarch and things like that. But you want the different sauces to be more fat-based, because the fat is going to give you energy, it's going to give you calories so that you can keep your weight on, and it's not going to feed the infections. So again, the homemade mayonnaise, but there's also something called chimichurri, and we have that. I'll just go down to basically, if you do a Google search, I will put this on the blog post too, but if you want to find it sooner, then you can just do a search for live disease free, and then ribeye, grilled ribeye steaks with chimichurri. And just, if you don't know how to spell it, just dictate into your phone or into the computer and it'll pull it up. So basically what chimichurri is, and I've never had it before. Again, this is another thing that my son-in-law, the chef, told me about. And basically you're just chopping up a lot of fresh herbs, so nutritious and flavorful. So for example, maybe a bunch of parsley, and then 5 cloves of garlic, and then a 1/4 bunch of cilantro. And you probably can't go too wrong with, if it's a little bit more or less, a 1/4 cup of apple cider vinegar, some lemon juice, and then also olive oil, dried oregano, and the red chili flakes, salt and pepper, and red onion minced. And so basically what you're doing is what he did is like I think he kind of did it all in the blender or the food processor, but you're not making the chimichurri, you're not going to grind the herbs so that they're just pureed, so it's just green, but you're kind of pulsing it, and you want it to be so that it just has a nice consistency. So you can still tell there's herbs in it, but it's delicious. And so you can put that on steak, you can put that on chicken, on anything. And then also I was just thinking of, what is that called? Pesto sauce. So you can make pesto sauces that are like it can have oil and a lot of basil and a lot of garlic. Be careful with the nuts and seeds because that will feed the parasites. If it had a tiny little bit of what our local health food store, there's a company locally that sells it, and there's a little bit of sunflower seed, but it's very minimal. But if you, again, when you're recovering from these parasites, you're recovering from chronic disease, just be a little bit more cautious. Say, I'll just skip the nuts in it and just the garlic and the basil and the oil. It can be just absolutely delicious and add a lot of flavor. And even I made burgers, so I freeze-dried a bunch of basil from this year. Hopefully next year I can grow my own because we haven't got a garden set up yet. But I just froze a lot, and I just grabbed handfuls, freeze-drying. I just grabbed handfuls and crunched them into the hamburger patties that I make, and it just tastes so good. So it's amazing. Just the fresh herbs, especially if it's over the holidays, it's just going to add a lot of extra flavor to your food. And then another recipe, again, parsley, garlic, oregano, extra virgin olive oil. This is where you can add the apple cider vinegar, sea salt, ground pepper, red pepper flakes. So that's a couple of different recipes. We do have one on the Live Disease Free website. All right, so let's go back to where we were talking about the different meal side dishes. So we do have a post, like I did do a post a couple of days ago on the Live Disease Free Facebook page, and I don't know if I did it on YouTube, but again, you can just do a Google search or wait for the post. But we do have a post from, I think, a year or two ago where you'll find all the different recipes for these different meals that I have that I'll just mention right now. So something like a crispy prosciutto wrapped asparagus. So that is really tasty. That's something that my son-in-law has made, and it tastes absolutely delicious. And then oven roasted carrots with thyme. That's kind of like a favorite for our family, but be careful when you cook carrots because carrots are normally high in sugar and higher in sugar than other vegetables, right? They're a root vegetable. They're higher in carbs than, let's say, asparagus or string beans or the different lettuces, etc. So when you cook carrots, they become higher glycemic. That means that when you eat them, your blood sugar will go up quicker than when they're raw. So if you do roasted carrots for your Thanksgiving meal or Thanksgiving meal or your Christmas, then just have a small amount, like have 1 or 2 pieces. Don't eat like a cupful of, or, like half a cup or a cup. Just have a couple of pieces of carrot. Just don't overdo it, because if you eat a lot of it, then it'll be a lot more sugar and more glycemic. So your blood sugar will go up higher. But carrots are super healthy, and if you just eat a little bit, that should be fine. And then another recipe that we have on that blog post is lemon ginger broccoli, which is delicious. Then creamy mashed cauliflower. That's another one that people absolutely love. So if we can't have potatoes because they're a very high carbohydrate, starchy vegetable, and we're avoiding that, we're avoiding corn and corn, potatoes, peas, like the little green peas, etc., sweet potatoes, we're avoiding those until we have recovered from these parasites. But what we can do is, some of us have made cauliflower rice, or you may have made the creamy mashed cauliflower. And just be aware that it's fine to have, but again, have small amounts of that. Just have a little bit. Like if you're having a half a cup of it, don't have a half a plateful, because I don't know if they have this on the USDA figured out yet, but they'll have it for cauliflower, but I don't know if they'll have it for the mashed cauliflower. But when you process a vegetable, you concentrate it, you're concentrating carbs. So if you eat a ton of it, then it's going to make the carbs go up a lot. But if you just have a small amount, like just a nice little small serving, it's not going to bother you. It's going to be way easier for you than the mashed potatoes. And it tastes really good. Absolutely delicious. And then roasted Brussels sprouts are always a favorite. And again, with Brussels sprouts, if you have 2 or 3 cups, look it up on the Chronometer. It's a free app on your phone, and see how many grams of carbs. It'll add up pretty quickly. But if you just have a serving of it, that's fine. And have some kind of a leafy green salad along with your meal to just kind of fill in the gap and make sure to have all the oil. Like if there's some oil left on your plate with the lemon juice or whatever, just scoop it up and take it in, because that is calories, which we need. Most of us don't want to lose weight. If you do, just leave the oil on your plate. Cauliflower, kale, colorful kale salad is another one. So there's 6 recipes on that holiday meal idea blog post from the Live Disease Free that we posted, I think, last year. And that will be on, I'll include that on the post here. So the key is to, whatever traditional family recipes that you love for side dishes, for example, what you want to do is just make sure that you can just make modifications. So just take out the cheese, take out the sugar, and you'll find that a lot of things will taste absolutely wonderful, and you're just going to avoid the foods that are really going to aggravate the parasites or make them more active and make you feel a lot worse. All right, so I'm just going to go over to your questions and answer a few questions here. Hi, Maureen. Hi, Deb. Hi, Karen. All right. Atel, do you suggest ozone enemas and I can't say that word here. Do I recommend enemas? So I can't talk about that topic on these platforms, so I apologize, but I really can't. You can go on to Rumble, and I do have some videos, more detail about that. If I do Zoom calls where I'm off of these platforms, I can talk about that, but I really can't talk about that here because we will be completely taken down. So Maurice, hello. Let's keep it to the meal ideas today. So do you guys have any favorites that you're wondering, Pam, can we make this Live Disease-Free compliant? Is there any way? I'll see if I can work my magic here. So doesn't Tazo have natural flavoring? So yes, so there will be a lot of things that have natural flavorings. And again, this is something that you can have over a holiday. Like, so for example, I might have 1 cup of Tazo in a year. I don't really like bubblies either for that reason. So I might still have a bubbly. It's not going to be the worst thing, but it's not like it's a serious problem chemical, but I prefer San Pellegrino, Perrier with fresh lemon and fresh lime. That's what I like the best. And it's interesting because my grandkids, they actually like that better than the bubblies, for example, and the San Pellegrino. So, and again, with that Tazo, I don't drink a lot of that tea. I have it in the house because my family likes to have it. And it's okay, it's fine, but that's kind of like hardcore health. And that's what I am because I recovered from MS. So that's important to me. And then Liza, just now chopping up your annual baggie of cabbage, fits in your pocket tomorrow meal. Let's see, just now chopping my annual baggie of cabbage that fits in my pocket for tomorrow's family meal. Awesome. And oh yeah, I didn't mention gravy. That's a really good idea. So with the gravy, like when we do an oven roasted turkey, because we love turkey, but you can have different meats. So some people like to do a brisket. Brisket on the Traeger is really great. And there's lots of great rubs that are very simple, like with pepper and salt. I'm trying to think offhand what it all had. It was mostly garlic. Might have just been garlic, pepper, and salt. And putting it on the Traeger for hours, like first uncovered and then covered for the last bit. But as far as turkey, like for the gravy, we always just keep our gravy au jus. We don't add, we used to years ago when I still wouldn't have any of it, I would keep some of it. You can do that too. You can keep some of the turkey gravy separate for yourself. And there could be other family members that avoid gluten, etc. You could thicken it with cornstarch for some people that are gluten intolerant. But we just have our turkey gravy au jus, and it's runnier, but we're just kind of used to that, and it still tastes really good. You can pour some of that on top of your vegetables too. Like if we always like to do like, we're kind of simple. Well, I shouldn't say simple. Like I will make cheese sauce for some of my family members that like not my immediate. Actually, I will for my sons, for example. They're over 6 feet tall and they're healthy. They don't have a parasitic infestation, and they never have. So, and they don't eat that all the time. So I'll make a homemade cheese sauce. So I will definitely steam cauliflower and broccoli, and either steamed carrots or oven roasted. Oven roasted is a lot more flavorful. And I will just have some butter on my vegetables, and I will pour some of the gravy broth on top, or the au jus from the turkey, which is not thickened, and that adds a lot of extra flavor there too. And then so Carla said you have rooibos tea from Good Earth. It's called Sweet and Spicy. So any herb tea, just make sure that if it tastes sweet to your mouth, don't drink it while you're recovering from parasites, but otherwise it's totally fine. And then, hi Morella, so nice to see that you're here. Would you recommend using extra virgin olive oil for cooking? Extra virgin olive oil is not very heat stable. So if you are just, let's say, sauteing vegetables, not at a super high heat, it's fine. But if you're going to be using a higher heat where you're frying, you're better off to use something like avocado oil, which will be a lot more heat stable. Absolutely. And coconut oil works really well. It's heat stable also. And also butter is perfectly fine. So what are my thoughts around extra virgin olive oil for cooking? Okay, got that. That's a double. So you can use it for things that are, again, you're not cooking that much. Absolutely. Like not that hot. Hi, David. Any cookbook recommendations? You know, I would really like to make a cookbook. I've got some different recipes. It's just such a huge undertaking. I can't really recommend any cookbook. If you're going to look for cookbooks, kind of look more towards the like the keto type. But then again, if you're going to look at a keto cookbook, you've got to take all the dairy out. The butter's fine, but you want to definitely take all of the dairy out for sure. All right. Paleo too. Paleo would probably be too high in carbs. Again, I just quickly go online and I find that there's recipes that have like 500 reviews, and most of them are 5 out of 5. You know, if it says, 4.9 or 5 out of 5 for several hundred reviews, go to it, look at maybe 2 or 3 different recipes really quickly and just pick the one that you like and just make a couple of modifications. Can we use gelatin, plain gelatin? You like to make a Jell-O mold with chopped carrots and celery and cranberries and pecans, chopped apple. Used to use a dark. So the only problem, Karen, with gelatin is that if you're in the United States or Canada, they're finding that the glyphosate, which is the active ingredient for Roundup, they're finding that in gelatin. So the integrative practitioners that I've studied under, they recommend, with your supplements, just to not use gelatin capsules. So that's the one thing that I would probably not do. And otherwise, it shouldn't be a problem, but I'm just concerned. I think in Europe, there may not be as much glyphosate. I'm not sure, but definitely in North America, they say that you should avoid gelatin. And glyphosate is the active ingredient for Roundup, and it really destroys our gut. It's linked with cancer. It's really awful because my dad was a farmer, and he used to use glyphosate, or it's Roundup, right? He used to use that a lot. And they told him, oh, it's totally safe. You can put your hand in it, you could drink it. And now years later, they're saying, oh my gosh, it causes cancer, and it's everywhere in our environment. So that's probably something that I personally wouldn't do just now that I know that. So can this diet help with PPMS? It will help with any type of MS. All MS is caused by infections. And so when you get the carbs lower, and it's not just MS, but all chronic disease, cancer, autoimmune, there's always different parasites involved. They could be different, but they all thrive on carbohydrates. So they all thrive on sugars and different starches and carbs. So when you decrease that food to them, then you will notice that you will start feeling a lot better. Within 1 week, a lot of students find that their bladder improves significantly, then they're sleeping better, and then they start to have improvements in, cognitive function and even more strength, and you can have less spasms. So the lower carb you go, you'll notice that you'll have a lot of symptom improvement. It's quite shocking, actually. One thing I wanted to mention too, this is a huge thing. If you eat too much meat, you might feel worse. So when you eat large amounts of meat, so for a woman, we find usually like 3 to 4 ounces per meal is fine. For a gentleman, 4 to 5 ounces is usually fine. But if you're eating like 10 ounces, for example, your body will break down the meat and turn it into glucose. So your blood sugar will go up. And we've had one student just last week, we're always sharing this in the plan, like don't overeat meat, don't eat too much meat because it can make you feel worse. And she didn't hear it for some reason. And so she was doing really, really well. And then all of a sudden she started to have her symptoms flaring up again. And we're like, what is going on? And we were trying to troubleshoot with her. And then she finally clued in. She's like, I wanted to gain more weight, and I was thinking meat is not carbohydrate, so I can just eat lots of meat. So I was eating way too many ounces of meat per meal, and that flared her parasite symptoms. So when you eat a lot of meat, your body starts to convert that to glucose, which is sugar in your blood, and you will notice that you feel worse. And that's why you have to be really careful, even on a carnivore diet, that it's more fat. You're definitely having animal protein, but you're also eating a lot of fat. And if you're just eating too much meat, that's not healthy. So meat is healthy, but just eating it in the right amounts for sure. And so yes, it definitely will help primary progressive MS. David, just a couple more questions here. So where is the website, search bar and logo and blog? So if you just look for livediseasefree.com, livediseasefree.com, and then you'll notice that we have a blog. And if you just want to find it fast, then in the search bar, in the Google search bar, go to livediseasefree.com, and you can just also add in the holiday meal ideas. So holiday meal ideas and livediseasefree.com, and do a search, and you'll find it faster that way. So those are the recipes for that we've posted a year ago. And then I am going to put all of what I've shared today on a separate post, and that will be posted on our website, Live Disease Free. So that'll be the newest post, right? The blog post, and that'll be posted either tomorrow or the next day. So ask in the Q&A tomorrow, let's see, quinoa. No, quinoa is a grain. So when we're recovering from chronic disease, Carla, we avoid all grains. So even things like chia seeds and flax, if you've ever soaked chia seeds, it gets really thick. That is carbohydrate. So we definitely would avoid all the grains, because that will definitely feed, again, the parasites that we're dealing with. What ingredients do you use in deviled eggs? I'm just thinking mayonnaise and salt and pepper, maybe a little mustard, dried prepared mustard for sure. Karen, I don't think you said quinoa. I'm sorry, I don't know where that is coming from. Oh, maybe, Carla, you were asking because you thought somebody else said that. And then this is your first meeting. So this what we're doing right now is just for the general public. So it's not part of the Live Disease Free plan. If you have just found me maybe the first time and you're like, what, parasites, MS? Like, what are you talking about, Pam? Then make sure to watch some of my videos. I have a lot of videos on YouTube, Live Disease Free channel. There's a playlist on MS and infections, and you'll start to see the types of parasites that are making you sick. Start to follow the diet, start to feel better. And then if you get to the place where you're like, Pam, I totally get it. I totally believe I have parasites. I need support. My doctor's not going to help me. And if you need support through that process, then I can help you in the Live Disease Free plan. So what you would do is just watch my masterclass training. It will be in the description of this video. And I'm sure you can find it on our website too, but it for sure will be on the description of this video. So watch it, learn about the different types of parasites, like how did we end up in this position? And then if you really would like some support, then you're going to fill out a form and submit it to have a time to chat with me. And once you fill out the form and send it off, then we will send you a link to my calendar, but make sure to watch the Coachathon before you do, because the Coachathon explains the process in great detail. The time commitment, it's very part-time, the cost, how we do this whole process, how do we access treatments, how do we get help from practitioners, how do we treat these parasites, how do we access all of it, energy testing, etc. So the Coachathon explains all of that. And if you go through the Coachathon and you're like, man, this is exactly what I need, then, and you still have questions, you can book a time to chat with me, or you can just join, but I will still want to meet you. I always chat with all the new students because I want to make that personal connection. We are going to go to work together. And if you want to listen to some successes, that again, we have a playlist on YouTube, Live Disease Free. Listen to the successes of the students. It's mind-boggling. One of the most recent was Melissa. She has been 9 years free of MS now. She hasn't seen a neurologist in 9 years. So we've been doing this for a while. We have a system that works. We are so honored to support people. We've supported hundreds of people in over 15 countries. And what makes Live Disease Free so unique is that we are helping you to finally treat the parasites that are causing your symptoms. It's not just about diet. It's not just about exercise. It's not about taking the right supplement. It's about treating the parasites that are making you sick. And that is what makes us unique. And that is the only way you can recover from chronic disease. So with that, I think I've shared enough with you. Again, it'll all be summarized in a blog post. And I hope you have a wonderful week. We will talk to you next week. Take care. Bye-bye for now.